This conference will now be recorded.
Rambam.
Because it's two, because we have two in this.
Yes, okay. And the difference is Maimonides, the emphasis is put on the first syllable. He's known as the Rambam. Whereas Nachmanides, emphasis on the second syllable. He's known as the Ramban. Right? One is a ma and one is a na at the end. A little hard to hear, but it's the Rambam and it is Ramban. Okay, so that should help to clarify. So tell me about the Rambam. Moses Maimonides. Around when did he live? Yeah.
11 to 1200.
What was he most known for? What are some of his classic works?
He wrote the Mishneh Torah.
Good. Okay, the Mishnah Torah is where he did groundbreaking work. In that he was the first of the time period that he lived in, right? When we go through our history, right, we had the Nevi'im, right? And then when we're coming to more modern times, modern from 2,500 years, we have the Tanaim, who are the ones who are the compilers of the Mishnah. We have the Amoraim, and they're the ones in the Gemara. The Mishnah is the clear teachings. Well, the teachings, the Gemara is uncoding those teachings, right? It's like a zip. The Mishnah is like a zip file, and the Gemara is unzipping that file. The Tanoim, let's say for the year minus 200 to the year 200, let's say. The Amoraim, the Gemara was the year 200 to the year 500. We have what's known as the Gaonim, and that was until about the year 900 or 1000. And then we have the Rishonim, right? The Rishonim would be Rashi, who we know is the great commentator on all of the Chumash and all of the Gemara. And we have many others. Now, those who were ruling on the halacha that's found in the Talmud, the way they all had been doing it until the time of the Rambam was at the back on each tractate, they would extract the halachot that were gleaned, the Jewish law, the halachot that were gleaned from that from that Gemara. So if we're learning Kiddushin, the tractate about marriage, you'd have all of these marriage laws that are there. The problem was, or the challenge was, some of the marriage laws were found not in the tractate, not in the Gemara of Kiddushin, but in the Gemara about Gitin, about divorces, right? You'd have mostly the laws of divorce there, but in the conversations that would ensue in the Gemara about, in the Talmud about Gitin, would also come up certain issues of Kiddushin. So the halachot were all kind of scattered around all of the different tractates. The Rambam was the great codifier of halacha. The great codifier of halacha. What the Rambam did was, he has a section, not on any tractate, laws of marriage, and he'll draw the halacha from wherever might have been found throughout the Shas, throughout all of the Talmud. And he'll bring it all together over there, in laws of Gittin, and laws of business, and laws of sacrifices, and laws of tefillin, and laws of prayer. See, he was the great codifier. So the works that the Rambam is best known for, I'd say, are three. There is the Mishnah Torah that you mentioned, which is where, again, he codified and extracted the halachas into very clear categories. And when we look up a halacha today, where do we go to look up a halacha? Shulchan Aruch. the code of Jewish law. That's based mostly off of the Rambam. And a lot of the wording is quotes from the Rambam. Okay, so of his three works that he's best known for would be Mishnah Torah, his Sefer HaMitzvot, the book of mitzvot, where there are a number of different great authors who authored a book on the Sefer, book of the mitzvot, where we know how many mitzvot are there in the Torah? 613. But there are more than that, there are less than that. How do you categorize it? How do you decide which ones make the list and which ones are a subtopic of another one that's on the list? It's not that the Torah has, here's number one, here's number two, and towards the end, here's number 613. Nice, neat package. That's not how it works. So the Rambam has his 613 mitzvot based on different principles that he has, based on which ones will be included, which ones will not be included. That's the Rambam. And the Ramban has his own Sefer HaMitzvot, where he disagrees with some that the Rambam included or left out. And there are many different Sefer HaMitzvot. Thirdly is Guide to the Perplexed. Mora Nevuchim. Mora teaching, as in a Mora teacher, as in Torah teachings. Nevuchim, those who are navuch, entangled, perplexed, right? And that's where the Rambam has his philosophy, right? Much of his philosophy. Okay. So that's a brief synopsis of the Rambam. Anything else that we should have included that we left out? The others should hear? Okay. Yes. And the Rambam is well known for his 13 principles of faith, right? And those are actually found in the Siddur. And we actually went through all of those, I think almost at the very start of the cycle. We went through all of those 13 principles of faith. Yes.
Rabbi, did you say you were going to post a link to Sefaria?
I did.
You did?
On the chat box.
Oh, in the Zoom. Okay.
Okay. So if I send you an email, would that be helpful?
Okay. Or in the WhatsApp?
Yeah, we can share on the WhatsApp. I think, right?
Okay. I'm not sure. I think I'll need to just, everyone hold 1 second. I think I'll need to send an email with it. That's how I can get it from this computer onto my phone or onto your phones. Just give me just 1 second.
I could forward it right now on the,
Oh, you got it?
yeah, on the WhatsApp.
Oh, WhatsApp.
Okay, that'll be helpful. Good. If you do that, I'll
Yeah, put
appreciate
on
it.
what? Okay, Joshua, good job.
Okay, on the WhatsApp, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the Rambam begins his Mishnah Torah with Yesodei HaTorah, chapter 1, which is foundations of the Torah. Okay? These are the hashkafic, the Jewish outlook, understanding, foundations of our belief. Okay? So let us begin. Okay? Now on Sefaria, those who have your own Sefaria, so you have Hebrew and English. You have it Hebrew and then English underneath, or you could choose, right? If you hit the Aleph A in the upper right-hand column there, you can have it bilingual layout. You could have it however you want to have it. Okay? I'm just going to do it my way, but everybody feel free, whatever's easiest for you. I'm going to be reading in Hebrew and then translating into English. Yesoda Yesodot. So this is chapter 1, halacha 1 of the Rambam, Yesodei HaTorah, foundations of the Torah. Yesoda Yesodot, the foundation of foundations. Now, anybody who's on the Zoom over here, I'll go to. When I have this open, I can't see any of you. So if any of you would like to make a point, you have to unmute and talk up. Raising your hand is not going to do anything but probably frustrate you because I won't see that you're raising your hand. Okay, once again, where is that? There we go. Yisod Yisodot, the foundation of foundations. V'amud, and the pillar of chachmot, of wisdom. Leida is to know sheyesh sham matsui rishon. There is a primary first being. V'hu mamtzi kol nimtza, who brought about all that which exists. The chol nimtzaim, and all that exists. Mishamayim va'aretz. Excuse me, heaven to earth. Umasha b'neihem, and all that is in between. Lo nimtzeu ela me'amitati matzo. It only exists because of the truth of God's existence, because of God's true being. And we'll soon see what he means by this. V'im yale al adachu eino matzui. If you're going to assume, you know me well enough. Thank you so much. If we're going to assume, if a person would have the thought, imagine, Shu Eino Matsui, that God does not exist, then guess what? Ein davar acher yachol limatzot. Without God, absolutely nothing else can exist. We say this in our Adon Olam, right? Hu Rishon, Hu Acharon, he's the first, he's the last. Our Yigdal prayer that we sing at the end of Friday night's services, that also goes through Rambam's 13 principles of faith. Okay? So if one were to imagine he doesn't exist, then without God, nothing else could exist. But if nothing else exists, that would not affect God's existence. God's existence is the basis for everything else that exists. We can't exist without God. God can do just fine, thank you very much, without us. Yes, Josh.
So the classic 3-year-old is going to ask you, so who created God?
Okay, so when we're dealing with a physical world, everything needs to be created, right? And let's take it a step further, right? So who created God? Well, who that created God, right? So at a certain point, you have to realize that there was a beginning, or science used to think constant state. It was always here. But now science themselves, and when I was going to high school back in the 1800s, right? Right, Esther? Right? BC before cholesterol. Yeah, so then I remember my science teacher saying to us, I was in yeshiva high school, and the science teacher saying, listen guys, I'm teaching you Torah. What your rabbis tell you in the morning, your rabbis will tell you in the morning. I'm just teaching you science. And the science that they taught us then, before the Big Bang theory, was that the world, constant state, it always existed. And anyone who would talk about a beginning was considered to be, you're a creationist, right? Until science climbed the heights of science and found themselves on the top of the mountain along with the creationists, because they said that there was a beginning, Big Bang. So science came around to agreeing Bereshit, in the beginning. Not yet to bara Elokim. They had the first word of the Torah in the beginning, not the next two words, God created. But, right, so science has to answer, what made the Big Bang? Right? So when we're dealing in a purely physical realm, everything that we know in the physical realm has a beginning and an end. Right? If you're dealing with just a physical realm, so what made that beginning? What made that start? Right? Who made that which banged, which started? When we're dealing with God, we understand that we're not dealing with this physical realm. And in the spiritual realm, it's not bound by time. It's not going to decay. It's not going to go through all that. Okay. So again, oops, 1 second. There we go. If nothing else exists, that does not affect God's existence. All that which exists needs Him, needs God to give us this life, this energy, whether we're talking about something that is live or inanimate. Everything is being energized, sustained by God. He doesn't need all of us, or any one of us. Therefore, his true existence is not like the existence of anything else. Hushanavi Omer, that's what we say. Hashem Elokim Emet. God is Emet, true. In terms of existence, He is true. V'hu levado ha'emet, and He alone is this truth. Ve'ein la'acher emet kamitato. Nothing else has a true existence like His, and that's what the Torah says. Ein od milvado. There is none other beside Him. Meaning, klomar. Now there is other things. We're all here. The cup is here. The tissue box is here. What we mean is, Ein sham matsui emet milvado kamoto. There is nothing that has true existence like Him besides Him. Hamatsui hazeh, this entity is Elokei haolam, the God of the world. Adon, the master of all the land. V'hu hamanhig galgal, and He is the one who maintains this galgal, this sphere, this universe, b'koach she'ein lo kates v'tachlit, with a power, a control, a power that is unbounded and unending. Shagalgal sovev tamid, it keeps going around. V'efshar sheyivo sheyisob lo sovev, it can't go around, it can't turn without a turner. V'hu baruch hu hamisavev oto b'lo yad b'lo guf, and He is the one who causes it to all go without any corporeality. Big thing of the Rambam, right? Without any hand, without any body. Fascinating. I looked into this a little bit. I was wondering from a scientific point of view, how does everything just keep on going? Right? But it's fascinating. The way that the planets keep going is once, according to science, it began with this, it was put into motion as it flung through the Big Bang, right? So if it's traveling through space where there's no resistance, so then it's never going to slow down. It's resistance that makes things slow down. There's no resistance, but what happens? So it just keeps going, but the gravitational pull just keeps it within that orbit that keeps going around. Fascinating, incredible. V'yidiyat davar zeh, and knowing this is a mitzvat aseh, is a positive commandment. Shenemar, as it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Where is that a quote from? The Ten Commandments. It's the first of the Ten Commandments. I am Hashem your God. The Chol Amal Datu, anyone who allows it to go up onto his mind, anyone who presumes. Sheyeh Sham Eloka Acher, there is any other power, Chutz Mizeh, besides God, over below ta'aseh, transgresses a prohibition of the Torah, which says, Lo panai, you should not have any other gods before me. Where's that from? The second of the Ten Commandments. The kofer bi'ikar, and such a person is denying the very, very foundation of God, of a fundamental principle of faith, as they translate it very nicely. This is the greatest principle of faith that all and everything else hinges upon. Elokazeh, this God, Echad hu ve'ein shnayim. He is one, not two, and not more than two, not even three. Ela echad. He is one that is one. Not three that is one. One that is one. She'ein ki yichudo echem min achadim hanimtzum ba'olam. His oneness is not like any other singularity that we have in the world. Lo echad kaminshu kolal achadim arbei. It's not one that is a composite of many parts. Lo echad keguf shu nechlak, not like our body, which has all of these different aspects to our body and organs and tissues and limbs, etc., and cells. It is a oneness. There is no other oneness like it at all. Ilu hayu elohut harbe hayu gufin ugviot. Ne'she'ein haninim hashavim etziotan nifradim zemizeh. Okay, this is getting to more of the philosophy. This is the part that we skipped in our Monday night Chovos Halvavos, studies of the heart, the first shar, which is the shar hayichud, that we've been skipping that, right? And he says here, right, if there were many different gods, then how could they be different if not in their physicality? But by God, right? But if God would have this physicality, then that would have this case v'tachlit, right? It would reach its end. It would have its expiration, as everything physical does, right? Velokeinu baruch shmo, but our God, blessed is He. His power is never ending and never stopping, right? Ein kochel kochel guf. It's not a physical power. And since there is no guf, so therefore there is no physicality, corporeality, lo ye'ero l'mor ot gufot, right? Then the events that happen with a physical body, like splitting or weakening, don't apply to him at all. Therefore, it's not possible that he be el echad, as we say, mitzvot say, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Of course, we're just missing the first two words, which are Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is our God. Hashem is one.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I read something really interesting yesterday that's relevant to this about scientists looking for a universal law of science that would unify all of the laws. And I thought of Shema, and I was thinking there has to be something that why would say Hashem Echad. And it's just this bridge that's not in the scientific world. They're trying to find that one law that connects.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is, why should there be laws of science? Why should the universe work according to these very specific laws? If it's all random, so how do we get such incredible precision from randomness? I would say my dining room table is the perfect example of that, right? Without work on keeping it organized, things just devolve, things just pile up in a random fashion. Until my wife says, can you please clean off all the books from the table? And that's what I do. Shouldn't have to wait for her to ask me to, but that's how it works sometimes. Hari mefurish b'Torah. It's explicit in the Torah, u'v'nevim, and in the prophets. She'ena kadosh baruch hu guf u'gviya. That God does not have a body or any corporeality. As it says, Ki Hashem Elokeichem hu Elokim b'shamayim mimal v'al aretz mitachas. Hashem, our God, He is the God in the heavens above and in the land below. If there's a corporeality, a physicality, right, can't be in two places in one time. Ba'guf lo yeh b'shnei mekamot. The Ne'emar says, Ki lo ri'item kol tmuna. You never saw any vision, any picture. And it says in Isaiah, Vel mitadam yuni. To whom can you compare me? Veshver. Ilu hayaguf. If there was any physicality, corporeality, hayadome lisha'ar gufim. He would be similar to other bodies? Im kain, if so, the Rambam says, but the Torah seems to say otherwise. Mahu zeh shekosav b'Torah. What is that the Torah says that it was like this clear sapphire tachat raglav, beneath his feet? Or that the luchot, the tablets given to Moses on Sinai, where ketuvim were written, be'etzba Elokim, with the finger of God. Yad Hashem, we find verses, the hand of God. Einei Hashem, the eyes of God. Oznei Hashem, the ears of God. V'chayotze b'dvarim ha'ela, and many other such examples. There's a tremendous amount of attributing physicality to God throughout the Torah. Hakol lefi da'atan shebnei adamu. All of that is called anthropomorphism. All of that is in order for us to be able to understand it and wrap our heads around it. It's according to the understanding of humankind. She'einu makirin ela hagufot. We can only understand if we're relating it to physical experiences that we know of, right? Words, we don't have any words. Words only describe physical phenomena that exist in our world. The Dibra Torah Kalashon B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in the terms of humankind for us to understand it. Va'kol kinuyim heim, but they're all nicknames, so to speak. Shenemar im shanoti berak charbi. Will I pull out my sword a second time? What, does God have a sword, do you think now? Does he kill with a sword? Ela mashal, rather it's a parable. Va'kol mashal, and it's all a parable. Raya l'davar, and a proof to this, one Navi said that he saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu levushe kitalag chiver. He saw his garment like talag chiver. Interesting. It's a strange wording for a pasuk. This pasuk is from Daniel. Almost all of Tanakh is in Hebrew. Daniel and Ezra and Nehemiah are written in Aramaic. So talag is sheleg, white like snow. The echad ra'o, another one saw him, Isaiah Yeshayahu saw him, chamutz bigadim, reddened with his garments when he came from Batzra. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses himself saw him over the sea, by the splitting of the sea, kigiboro semel, like a warrior doing battle. Uva Sinai, and on Sinai, Moshe saw him kishliach tzibur atuf, like a leader of a congregation wrapped in a talis. Lomar, which shows us clearly, she'ein lo demut v'tzura, he has no form, he has no shape, he has no physicality, no corporeality. El hakol b'mareh hanvuah v'machazeh, everything was in a prophetic vision that they saw, meaning God wanted to represent a certain aspect of his dealing with us, and therefore he would present it as a sage old man, as a young warrior, as coming back from battle, etc., etc. V'amitat hadavar, but the truth of the matter is, ein dato shel adam mevin. The mind of a person cannot understand, cannot understand it, cannot fathom. And that's what the pasuk says in Eov, hacheker elokah timtza, right? Fathoming of God, is that something that you'll be able to realize? Im ad tachlit shakai timtza, to the extent of God, will you ever understand that? And of course, that's a rhetorical question that we will not. Moshe. Now, just as an aside, one of the astounding things that the Rambam writes in his Moreh Nevuchim, which is in part 2, chapter 25. There he's discussing, in Moreh Nevuchim, God to the perplexed, he often is dealing with Aristotelian thought, because that is what was accepted as the gold standard during his time. And he sometimes agrees with it, and very often he disagrees with it. And Aristotelian thought taught that the world always existed. And the Rambam says, based on science, again, this is 11th century science, but he said, based on science, it's clear the world had to have had a beginning. But then he says something fantastic, something amazing. He said, if science will conclusively, will prove that the world always existed, that won't be such a problem for us. What do you mean? What do you do with the very first verse of the Torah? In the beginning, God created 6 days of creation. What do you do with all of that? And he says, that is no more difficult than the hand of God, the eyes of God, the ears of God, the legs of God, the finger of God. In other words, we understand that there are many things in the Torah which are not meant to be taken literally, but are speaking to us in order to make us understand it, to break it down for us in a manner that works for us. And if in fact science will show that the world has always been here, fair enough. So we'll have to reinterpret those verses as a mashal, as a parable, as a teaching, which is a very, very important concept. From a Torah perspective, Torah and science always have to work together. Science is collecting evidence from what we now have and working our way backwards to what was. Torah is telling us what was. Torah is the blueprint. If we're understanding, if we're doing correct science, or we've got correct Torah understanding, they're going to line up. If they're not lining up, either science is getting it wrong, or our understanding of Torah is not fully accurate. But there is the physical, evidential facts, proof, and there is the Torah facts, truth, and they must align. And the example I gave before of science coming around to the Big Bang is a perfect example of that alignment. Another classic example, in the 1970s, NASA had this brand new, very, very, very powerful telescope. And with that, they were able to measure the exact length of a lunar month. It's roughly 29.5 days, but it's 29.5, and another 6 or 7 digits. And when NASA so proudly announced this number, someone whispered, the Jews have had that exact number for centuries. It's in the Talmud, that exact number. And the scientist's response was, lucky guess.
Which is actually proving your point, because previously the Russians had done it, and they were further off. So they were getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll get it, right?
So when there is this honesty, right, it makes sense there'll be this alignment. One of them is what God passed down to us. That's going to be true. And with the proper tools and systems, we could also measure and come around to that same truth, right? Rabbi Sachs has a whole book on the great partnership of Torah and science. They're not meant to be at odds with one another. When there is this haughty arrogance of good luck, a good lucky guess, that's when they will appear to be at odds with one another. Okay, let's get. I haven't lost that. All right. Everybody still there?
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I'm going back to my other screen then. Number 10. So Mahu zeh shebikesh Moshe Rabbeinu lahasig. So if that's the case, what is it that Moshe wanted to understand when he said, Hareini nad kvodecha, show me your honor? Right? Was he asking God to reveal his self to Moshe? If we're now establishing that there is no corporeality, physicality, image, or form. And Maimonides, Rambam, explains, Bikesh leita amitati matzosh l'kodesh baruch hu. He wanted to have an understanding of the existence of God, the same way that we understand about a person. That we saw a person, right? And that, right? And we have the image of a person in our mind, right? And we recognize that this person looks different than that person. And this person, right? We recognize a person when we look at them. There's a certain condition that a person is unable to recognize others. It's a medical condition, right? Which to us seems to be astounding, right? But in fact, every tree is very different than any other tree. Can you tell them apart? Yeah. Okay, so Moshe wanted to have this understanding of God. That it should be completely apart and a clear understanding for everything else. And Hashem answered, it's not possible. It's not within the ability of a living person attached to a body and a soul to understand, have any clarity over the existence of God. And Hashem did let him know that which no other person before him or after him will be able to understand. Until he was able to understand certain aspects of God. Right? And Kamoshi Peredachem and Hashem Shirach Harav. That's how it's explained. Like when you see someone from behind. Right? And that's what the pasuk says, V'ra'ita et acharai ufanai lo yera'u. You will see me from behind, my face you will not see. Meaning that you will have a certain understanding of my essence more than anyone else, but that is in no way an understanding of God's essence. In Kabbalistic terms, God is referred to as Ein Sof. Ein Sof means endless. But the idea there is that our capacity to understand God will never reach Sof, will never reach the end, right? Because we do not have that ability. The Kevan, Shnit Barer, once it's been clarified, number 11 now, Yud Aleph, She'eino gufu gviyah, there is no body physicality. Barer is clear. Shlo yarelo acham imorot hagufot. Things that happen to bodies don't happen to God. Lo chibur, not coming together. Lo pirud, not separating. Lo makom, not being limited by a place. Lo midah, not being limited by space. Lo aliyah, not ascending. Lo yiridah, not going down. Not right, not left, not front, not back. Not sitting nor standing. Ve'eino matzui bizman. And this is something that we certainly can't wrap our heads around. Beyond the realm of time. Beyond the realm of time. Fascinatingly, Ramban on Chumash says a principle that science only came to centuries later, that time is dependent upon matter. Before there is any matter, there is no time. So Bereshit means that God began, time began when physical creation began. But that God is beyond the realm of time, that we can't understand. The Eino Matsui Bisman, he's not found within the realm of time. Achilo Reshit, that he'd have a beginning and an end. Right? Going back to your question. If something is beyond the realm of time, so you can't even talk about a beginning and an end. When did it begin? What does begin mean? What does end mean? Right? So we're discussing within our physical realm, yes, Josh, everything has a beginning and an end. But beginning and end is within the realm of time. If we're talking about this deity that is beyond time, so then we can't talk about beginning and end. There's never any change, because nothing will cause him any change. There's no death, there's no life that we find by physical beings. Not foolishness or wisdom like we find by people. Not sleeping, not awakening, not anger, not laughter, not rejoicing, not sadness, not silence, not speech. And that's what our sages said. Ein lamala, up above, there is no standing, sitting, front, back. All of these are things which exist in our realm and not beyond that. Ho'ila davar kenu, since this is the case, number 12 now, Yud Bet, right? All these expressions, statements that we find in the words of the Torah and the words of the Nevi and the prophets, it's all a mashal. It's all a parable in order for us to understand it. When it says in Tehillim, in Psalms, Yoshev, the one who sits in the heavens, laughs. Ki asuni, they have angered me with their silliness, as Hashem rejoices. Al Hakol, about all of them, our sages say, Dibra Torah Kalashon B'nei Adam. The Torah is speaking using terms that we can understand, that we can relate to. Right? As it says, Ha'otihim achisim, are they angering me? Or it says, Ani Hashem, I am a God, I never change. And if there were times that he's angry, times that he's happy, then he would be changing. All of these are only found by gufim ha'afelim v'ashvalim, by physical, lowly bodies. Shochnei batei chomer, those who dwell within this decaying, ever-decaying physicality. Asher ba'afar yisodam, that the root, our essence, is made from the earth, from physicality. Aval hu baruch hu, but he, blessed is he, Yitbarach is blessed v'yitromam, and exalted al kol zeh, above all of this. Let's do a few of chapter 2, and then we'll call it. Hakel hanichbad v'nara hazeh, this God, this venerable, awesome God, mitzvah la'ohavo. It is a mitzvah to love him, uliyira oto, and also to be in awe of him, right? Love is, there's a certain level playing field. Awe is a whole different realm. I recognize that there's just something so far beyond. As it says, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Where's that a quote from? The Shema. The Naaman, it says, "V'et Hashem Elokecha tira," and Hashem, your God, you shall fear. You should be in awe of Him. V'heyachi haderech, and what is the pathway? La'ahavato v'yirato, to have this love, and this fear, this awe. V'shah shiponein ha'adam b'ma'asav. And this is what we're doing on Monday night. Chavos halvavos. The shar habichin is what we're working on right now. A person needs to look around and see what's going on around and be in awe. And to have this sense of overwhelming love for all that which he is giving to us. Right? We need to be in wide-eyed wonder like little kids, right? And it's so important not to become jaded, right? Actually, when I looked up this and investigated about the planets, it was because it was from taking a walk with my grandson in Florida, and we're discussing different things. I said, oh, I don't know why that happened. He didn't ask that question, but things that we were discussing made me think, I don't understand how this is happening, why this is happening. So to always have our eyes wide open. Bisha, at the time she yitbonein ha'adam, that a person contemplates, right? Yitbonein, the root of that is bina, contemplate. B'masav, his actions, God's actions. Uveruav, and his creations. Haniflaim hagdolim, that are so wondrous, that are so incredible. V'yira mehen chachmato, and see in them this wisdom, she'en la erech velocates, that has no way of measuring, that is endless. Miyadhu ohev, merely a person has a sense of love, umishabeach, and praise, umefaer, and exalts, umitaver tava gedola, and has a tremendous desire, leida, to know this Hashem Agadol, this great God. Kamo Shamar David, like King David said, Sama nafshi leilokim lekel chai, and that's actually one of the Friday night zemirot, not one of the more popular ones that's always sung, is Sama nafshi leilokim lekel chai. My soul thirsts for God, for this living God. And when a person thinks about these things, miyad hu nir tala charav, we get thrown back, so to speak, v'yifached, and have a sense of fear, of awe, v'yodeyat, and recognizing shehu bria katana, we are this small, measly creation, shefala afela, lowly, darkened, Omedet, standing there, bidat kala meuta, with such feeble mental capabilities, lifnei tamim deot, before the one who is so complete and overwhelming in his knowledge. As David again, King David said, Ki eresh shamecha, maaseh etzbotecha, when I see the heavens, the work of your fingers, I say, ma enosh, what is mankind? Kitis karena, that you should even consider him. Ulfi advarim elu, and based on this, ani meva'er, I explain klalim gedolim, major understandings, rules, mimase ribono olamim, from the acts of the Master of the universes, kedei sheyeh petach lemevin, that it should be as an opening for those who understand le'ahov et Hashem, to love Hashem. Kamo she'amru chachamim, as the chachamim said, our sages have said, be'inyan ava, when it comes to this love, shemitoch kach atamakir misha amar v'yah olam, that through this hitbonenut, right, that we look into the world, we're able to gain an understanding of the one who spoke and the world came about. It gives us a glimpse of a drop in the ocean of God, and it is truly overwhelming and overpowering, and it's supposed to give us this sense of love and awe at the same time. Okay, good. Powerful, huh? Rabbi.
It reminds me of what you were saying in Chovasal Avos about how people are born with all of these gifts and blessings, and they don't recognize it.
Yeah.
Because from a young age, you can see, you can talk to most people.
Yeah. Everyone's welcome to join us Monday nights, 5:45, both in person and online. We do Chovasal Avos, and Gabriela mentioned that he spoke over there that one of the reasons he gave two. Next week we'll have the third reason. Also, fantastic reason with a beautiful story that he gives with it. But two reasons why we don't appreciate God. all he does for us. Reason number one is our nature is to focus on what we don't have. So since we're always focused on what we don't have the bandwidth to give to appreciating that which we do have. And secondly, he said that we transitioned from not having to having at a point where our minds and understanding was not yet developed. We went from opening our eyes for the first time, right, when we were infants, and hearing for the first time, and walking and talking and all these things. By the time our mental faculties mature, we view that as a given. It's a part of us. It's not a gift, right? Imagine a person who's blind their whole life, and then they open their eyes and they can see. You have these YouTube videos of people who are colorblind, and then they're given a certain pair of glasses. I think it is. I'm not sure what it is, right? And all of a sudden they see the world in color, and they just break down crying at the beauty, at the brilliance and the beauty of that which we as we make our way through life, right? Because if you go from not having to having when you are at a mature state, then you are filled with this awe and this appreciation. But we all transition. Thank God we're all healthy and we all have our faculties, and we transition from the not having to having when we were infants who have no clue what's going on. And once we have an appreciation, right, then if we can't see, what do we say? I've been robbed, which is something that grates against me almost as much as when I ask someone, how you doing? And they say, what? Not too bad. Not too bad. Never say that to me. I'm giving you warnings now. I don't like hearing that. Yes. But not too bad is giving God a C minus. Not too bad. That's not the answer supposed to give. Okay, my friends. Good seeing everybody. I'm going to say their goodbyes over here. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So we're getting later and later.
Good night.
There's no choice because davening's getting later and later. I'm okay starting at a certain point an hour before davening, but I think that's too early for most of you. Because right now, next week davening is going to be 7:30. I'm okay starting 6:30. Yeah. So, okay. Look, I'm okay next week doing it 6:30. Okay. Actually, next week not. The week after. I have a mitzvah boy next week. I already told him that time I could do. I'm sorry, there is class next week. It'll be about 8:00.
To do a survey poll on WhatsApp now. So like you could even like, so I don't know. You send it out? I don't know. Maybe Jackie. Yeah. Maybe like so that people can like, like what time do you
Can I make everybody an admin?
I think you can do whatever.
Okay.
Oh, no limits.
Okay.
Could you make Gabriella?
Jewish journey. Jewish journey.
Or just make somebody responsible or reliable.
Add participants.
Or we can just send a text. It's super easy to say.
Yeah, just take a tally and see who it works for and who it doesn't.
I just made you a group admin, Gabriella. Okay. Anybody else want to be an admin? I'll make Jackie an admin. Jackie's an admin.
I was just about to say, why not me, Rabbi?
Huh?
I was just about to say, why not me?
I made you an admin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so next week it'll be again after Mar about 8:00, and after that, if everybody's amenable towards it, I'm happy to go an hour before davening. because davening is going to get as late as 7:45.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Which means we won't be starting till about 8:30. Right? Yeah. So I would actually prefer to go an hour before. I know for a while people weren't able to. David, how does that work for you?
I think it's more Mary.
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're good?
Okay.
Okay, then I think we should.
Okay. All right. So next week, regular time. And then after that, we'll, our administrators will post on our WhatsApp group, and we'll make sure that it's a go. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very,
Night. Thank you, Rabbi.
very welcome. Good night. All right.